Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzo show. Yeah.
Here is your coffee, sir.
Got it, robot lady. Cool. And then there were two again, as there will be every week.
No guests.
No guests.
People can't. It's funny, man. People keep getting hitting me up and like wanting to get on the podcast. I'm like, yeah, we just like don't take guests anymore. Sorry.
Like the bar has been raised so high. Like where I'm at, I'm like, let's hop on a call at least, vibe check it. If it's not like spectacular, out of this world, we can probably leave it there.
Yeah. And you know, I feel like also during the course of like this podcast and the whip, like there's always someone who's been left out who shouldn't have, but I do feel like we've covered 95% of the ground that I like ultimately care about within this space, and would be cool to sometime, you know, at some point in the future, maybe like sort of do another go around of like, you know, the people who are still around that, you know, made a first round of our, you know, I don't know what you call it, like the interview portion of our podcast's career or whatever. What's that?
The interview season, yeah.
The interview season that was like 2 years or whatever. We do long seasons for the podcast. The whip, we chop it up a little bit. But yeah, man, I'm sort of like, you know, and I'm in constant conversation with like a lot of people who, you know, we've been through over the years as well too. So I don't feel like I'm missing out on a whole lot, man. I'm sure we, you know, every now and again, maybe someone will come across our desk who we should get back on or whatever.
Yeah. But like that's really few and far between. And like you were saying, folks that hop on the whip, like early project status, if they're like super amazing, out of this world, like we'll get that spidey sense tingling and we'll do our thing regardless, so we can get folks that special sauce or whatever. But yeah, sticking with this format's definitely the play. Dude, we were just chatting right before we hit record. I've been seeing some. You're always spicy on Twitter. That's why I love following you there. I know it's like at least a couple times a day, like some like inspiration or like comedy or just like, what is this guy simmering on today? But lately, I've been seeing strands that look like sub rants that are attached to like a larger rant that I hadn't heard yet. And I'm just wondering if you want to kind of unpack where your mind's at and what you've been tweeting out lately.
I don't, man. Maybe we can like drag it out of me or something. There probably is some sort of like, you know, larger thing going on. I mean, there's a lot of like larger things that like annoy me, but dude, I feel like I need to like, I don't know, unpack it or something. Like I need this like therapy session. I don't know, man. It's sort of like is along the same vibes as like, you know, ditching the guest portion of the podcast. I'm just like so annoyed with like the direction that the space has gone, and like I don't know, man, I'm just so sick of like the same like bullshit that like every time I feel like it's gonna die out, we just get like hit with another like strong dose of it, and it's just sort of nuts, man. Like, you know, it really hang on, let me mute my Discord so we're not getting whomped the whole time. You know, it really just feels like the space has completely moved on in like this crazy, horrible direction that I just like abhor. And I feel very grateful, man, for the people who have stuck around, because I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I would still be in this space if a lot of the people who were here early on with us hadn't stuck around too, because I just feel like the landscape is so different. Like the people who are attracted to this space, like aren't the kind of people that I vibe with. And we're sort of like how I ended up here in the beginning, like trying to get away from all of that. And I've like touched on that before. And so I don't know, man, every now and again, it like comes out on Twitter. I just like, and You know what, man? I'm actually feeling even more annoyed lately because like there are, I don't know, there are comments that I make that dude, I feel fucking old in this space, honestly, man. I feel like a year ago it was like we were teenagers, and now I feel like get these idiots off my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
Like none of these people know what they're talking about. Like it's all like, smoke and mirrors and like influencer bullshit and like co-option of like all the terms and like and I'm just starting to feel like I'm yelling into like the abyss because for as many of the people who have stuck around, a lot of people have not, man, which is like sort of surprising to me. Like in terms of like, I don't know. I guess I just sort of assumed that everyone would be like us, and once you just start something, you just never stop for the rest of your lives. And here we are doing the podcast and the whip that we just sort of like started like off the cuff, like randomly, and it's just sort of become a thing. And I can't even, on the one side, I say like I can't imagine being here if a lot of the same people weren't here. And on the other hand, I'm like, I'm just shocked that anyone can leave who weathered the first like bear market and who's like been through this hype cycle and like put so much like time and effort into the space. And I don't have like a particular name or names in mind, but I do feel like the crowd of OGs within the space over time has gotten tighter, but also like smaller, and is like continuously dwindling, which is part of like why I feel old. Like I feel like a lot of there's still just as much. What am I trying to say? There's still a lot of people who believe in the same ethos and like mindset as that OG mindset, but the people who have stood the test of time and have been here for years, I feel like are fewer and fewer, far between. And the new people are cool and they get it. Those who are have sort of like been absorbed into the community and everything, and I love that, but. I don't know, man. I end up on these like Twitter spaces and people are talking like about, using POAPs as a really innovative way to drive people to community events. And I'm like, motherfucker, are you like, these are conversations we were having in like 2019. Like, what the hell? I don't know, man. And like intro rant. I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, but feel free to reel me in or comment here.
No, what really struck a chord was your comment on the folks that like kind of weathered the ice age, right? Like,
yeah.
2018, 2019 into 2020, there were bones around for people to chew on, to gnaw on. Like there's really no other sustenance other than community, than like talking shit together, interacting on scent, right? And like a name that pops up, 127 kilograms or 127 kgs, is like one person that like was great on scent, super active, like one of us, and then just like dipped towards the middleware end of 2019, never to be seen again. Like I don't know where they came from or where they went. There's other folks, like I wish Clay Cal 303 was like more active. They're still here and there on Twitter once in a while, right? But like, yeah, folks have disappeared,
yeah,
largely, right? And like, I think we're lucky because we kind of created our own islands with this show, with the whip in particular. Like after Scent was largely washed away, right? We were able to hold on here, and a few other like Conlon and No Shot with Async were able to do their thing. Mighty Moose is still making his art, right? A bunch of the artists still doing their thing, so they're still here. But yeah, like not having like a proper home, a proper digital home, I feel like that's sort of like our loss. It's one of the like eternal kind of tragedies, I think, of being so early, and so early in a way where like our early home just is really no longer, even though it is still searchable. And they did like a UI revamp, and Scent looks like the old Scent from back in the day. It's very empty of everyone that used to inhabit it. But that's something that is really painful. I think it's one of these curses of being early, like losing out and seeing all the change. I guess it's probably like a better equivalent, like you growing up in a town that's sort of small early on. You live there your whole life. It becomes popular and it is literally unrecognizable. Like the town or city, whatever it is, current day, present day, versus when you were growing up and what it used to look like, how it used to feel, people that used to be there, right? So, I mean, I don't know if there's like any antidote to that other than just remembering how the good old days used to be, and then also trying to hold on to the spirit, more importantly, probably, of the good old days, so that new folks that are coming here, even if they may be different and not the same, maybe they'll still grok that same ethos and still keep that early fire burning for other folks so that they can come over and enjoy some of that. I don't know if that is sort of like where you're coming from on that point, but I think that's, it's really sad, but at the same time, life goes on. And if we just stay fixated in that one epoch, then we sort of miss out on everything that's coming.
Yeah, no, totally, man. And I like, I think that's part of it, man. It's like crazy. Like the term OG was like thrown around for a very long time, very early, and like, amongst like sort of a small crowd. And it always seemed just sort of like, I didn't sort of like goofy, like bullshit banter or whatever. And not that I'm like trying to compare myself to a gangster by any means or anything, but at the same time, like, it's starting to, the divide feels steep, man. Like a lot of these new people coming into this space who are like very well intentioned, like I was sort of saying about the Twitter spaces, man, are like, a lot of these people are cool and talented and they get it, and are really excited and parroting things that we already did, you know what I mean? Like years ago, like conversations that we've already had, and there's articles being written and like, things being conducted by like, all these like famous people acting like they just discovered some shit that we've been talking about forever. And it's frustrating, man. I feel like Connie Digital is someone who could probably identify with my sentiment here. I feel like he's expressed like similar annoyance for his concepts being him not getting attribution for his concepts still to this day. And I feel like we're
like earliest dude I know to that outside of like the metaverse and everything else in the crypto art, like. Dude is a pioneer, but keep going. Yeah.
Well, dude, I feel like you and I specifically, man, are like getting a taste of that like right now. And Wizard X actually posted something the other day. He's like, dude, I'm paraphrasing. Basically something to the effect of like, we went through like an entire like VR metaverse hype cycle. And like, it was just us out here, like the whip the whole fucking time. Like nothing even changed. And somehow we've been there from start to finish the whole time. And like people just acting like nothing ever happened and are just, hashing. Sometimes I feel like, I'm like, dude, did these fuckers just like seriously go back and like listen to some of our podcasts and then like repackage it in like, 2022 to like a new audience who's like, can better understand it now. And we were just like way too fucking early with it. I don't know, man. Again, feel free to like reel me in, but I think we're sort of getting to like the core of like what I'm really fucking annoyed about lately.
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about it too. And you see like the examples you gave earlier, like people thinking through POAPs a little bit deeper in a way that like we've already done like years ago, literally. Right. And repeating the same questions, like having the same problems. It's I mean, we've kind of played it very, very loose too. It goes back to our digital home Scent no longer being there. Like if Scent had persevered literally like 1 year more just in its old former state, like not changed or whatever, when the boom happened, like there wouldn't have been a richer resource for folks to jump into and figure shit out, like on the crypto side of things and like NFT side of things than Scent. Like, and the folks that had been active there at that time, like they would have been the beneficiaries of that boom. But everything disbanded a year early, and everything was just whoever was on Twitter at the time, whoever was like the best at the tweets, they're the ones that were able to like get the most attention. And those folks may or usually weren't like the most informed or had the best grasp of history or what came before, right? So everything that we had been doing sort of lost. Even though like on the periphery, we're still doing like the podcast, we're still doing the whip and stuff like that. I think because of especially like the whip being so ephemeral, like having to be there and like kind of giving a middle finger to like traditional like promo marketing and stuff like that, probably the impact was definitely more muted than it could have been. So a lot of the things that we had already been talking about and thinking through earlier is probably lost a little bit there, but I don't know. The real ones know. And the thing for me is like the people I admire and respect, like the artists, the other builders in the space, like they know where we stand. They know our place in the history of things. And that's to a point good enough for me, but I'm still like fucking hungry for the recognition.
Yeah.
That
I
think
deserve it, man. Like,
yeah.
let's, I'll say it. Dude, shit. What were you just saying right before you got to that part?
What do you mean?
Like rewind the track like 2 seconds. The point you were just making, I wanted to hit on. Oh, fuck! It's on the tip of my tongue. What were you just saying?
Talking like Scent washed away, like we're still doing our thing.
Oh, yes. So, dude, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, people ask a lot, like if we capture the whip, and
yeah,
we never really have. We've tried to in a lot of different ways, but because of what it is, it's like extremely difficult to capture. And we're a team of volunteers, like just sort of doing this on the side. So, we never had a ton of resources to really dedicate to trying to capture this in an appropriate way. And everyone's like, we've had a lot of people trying to help us out and everything. It's never really been done. And part of me is like, it's sort of a shame. And then the more that like, we don't get recognition for any of this shit, part of me is just like, you know what? Fine. Then fuck all these people who like weren't there. And I kind of, in a weird way, I think it's kind of cool that like, that was it, man. Like there's some like documentation in terms of like, selfies and shit like that. And you can sort of piece together like, what went down at some of these things. But part of me also likes that, like, if the only real way to have ever experienced it properly was to have been there. And a lot of these will just go down as like some, lore, like legendary shit in the metaverse once everything is like more finely packaged and polished and, product up and served to people. The Whipple will just always have been one of those things that if you were there, you were there. And if you didn't, you missed it type of thing. And that's part of that is cool, man.
Yeah. And dude, like, it's not just like you had to be there and like, it's gone like forever. Like the early days were intensely documented. Like Troubadour wrote some of the best, like in-depth kind of like journalistic write-ups of every early whip. Like you, myself, Trizlet, we recorded like our struggles trying to like go from like a soundless whip to incorporating like live audio at the whip. Like the hardest challenge I think anyone faces when they want to do any of these like metaverse meetups. And then everyone who's been attending any of these events, like the whips that strike a chord in more folks, you go back and you can like look up hashtags, certain like the Twitter handle has all those retweets captured there. Like the history is actually pretty searchable for folks that want to dig down into it. And like if some of these historical, like previously forgotten NFT projects are any indication, like I think we have a pretty strong chance of being resurfaced by some quote unquote like big figure or someone that is just like, oh my God, like struck a cultural gold mine and figured out like where all the shit, like all the good shit came from. You know what I mean? Even going back like to Cent days and what was happening over there. So it just, as long as the internet's around, we still have that ability to be resurfaced and in a way that finally does like the appropriate amount of justice to what we've had going on, and to the whole community that's been showing up, and to the whole whip crew that's been doing the thing, like on based on pure passion and spirit for the cause and the mission, and just for the vibes, right? So that gives me a little bit of peace of mind, but to your point, man, it's just like, damn, you see all this shit flying, and it's like, all right, we've been there. So that just fuels me more to keep doing our thing in the same way as you, actually.
Yeah, you're right, man. I wasn't thinking about in terms of like recording the whip. I was thinking of like the actual like live event from start to finish. But you're right, like on the periphery.
We interrupt this program to remind you to eat your OHNO. They're back.
Cool. The last thing I heard you saying was I hadn't been thinking about it in terms of, and then yeah, lost you.
Oh, give me a little more context.
I think I was just talking about how searchable the history for
okay, yeah. I think I've been talking for a minute before I realized you couldn't hear me. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the like sort of peripheral recording of the history of the whip and everything, like the podcast and Two Doors writing and everything. And you're right. I was thinking more like just in terms of like being able to re-watch or like re-experience a whip, which we've never really been able to capture, which I think is kind of cool. But I don't know, man. It's very like gratifying to see the Zuckerverse go down in flames like it has been, and just brings so much joy to my heart. I really just feel like, get these amateurs like off our lawn and like out of our like just feels like they just like show up to some early whips and then just like invest billions of dollars into like trying to like make a massive version, like or I don't know, man. Get me started on like a whole other thing, dude. But you scratch the surface on something else in terms of like the Twitter influencers sort of capturing that like early NFT, community after Cent sort of fizzled out, and there was some like existing communities on Twitter, and that's one of the other things that's like so annoying, man. I didn't get this the gobblers or whatever, like you get on people just dumping this thing that they got for like 14.5 ETH or some shit like that, and I've gotten lucky with some airdrops, like probably a lot of us have who've been around long enough. And I feel like if you've been around for a long time and you haven't gotten lucky on at least one airdrop, I really feel bad for anyone who's been grinding this hard, who hasn't lucked out. But more and more, it feels like those things are boiling down to, and they always have to some extent, man, but those things are just boiling down to like this same group of influencers who just happen to always be on like all of the same things, and all of them are just all cross promoting like all the same things. And it's just, I think people entering the space, it's not as transparent as it is to some of us who have been here for a long time and just sort of see this thing like manifest itself. But now it just seems like if you want to get in on those things, like there used to be, I shouldn't say there used to be, because it is constantly evolving, but like, a lot of times previously, for some of these big airdrops, it had been tied to other previous Web3 things that you've done or interacted with or utilized or something like that, and I just feel like the trend is trending more towards if you can spread the word and amplify the message loud enough, you get the pump and dump NFT. And it's so frustrating on top of like a lot of the other things to see that like Twitter influencer culture just like run amok and have like, co-opted all the terms and, are just throwing the money around and shit. And I don't know, man. I feel like the title of this episode should be like Bitter Old Rizzle.
Or Get Off My Metaverse Lawn or something like that.
Yeah, man.
I mean, on the art gobblers in particular, I think there's a lot of like nuance that may not be clear. Like they've been doing their thing. It's not an old project, but since the beginning of summer, they started bringing in folks into their Discord, like helping out, pitching in, like a lot of like no name folks. They've also been bringing a lot of artists. Like Brinkman is probably the most notable one that's been on my radar that's been attached to that project from earlier on, right? And they're the ones that were starting to build and help contribute and do all like the free labor and stuff that folks do in Discords and helping set and like vibe check like where the project was going. In the lead up to the launch yesterday, that's when they were bringing in some of the bigger, like the folks with the big Twitter followings, right? They leverage that. And they're the ones that also got in on that kind of like free NFT whitelist share or whatever. But before those big Twitter influencers, there's a bunch of regular folks, right? Who also got the whitelist and were able to mint that NFT that Good. All of a sudden went to like 15 ETH. I think it's down around like 13 ETH at like the time of recording today on Tuesday, November 1st. So some of those folks, they Good. Sold pretty early and they're like, wow, I have almost like $20,000 that I didn't have the other day. And I was just in a Discord helping out, having fun with folks. Wow, this is like life-changing stuff. And 1,000 folks were given that whitelist opportunity, right? Most of them like not the big Twitter influencers. So I think that's interesting. That's crazy. Say what you will about the influencers. I'm not sure who like was on the wait list and sold immediately. I think that's more problematic for the big Twitter influencers that came on lately or like relatively recently, who were probably saying things like, oh, I got to work with my favorite artist, Justin Roiland, blah, blah, blah. I interviewed him like a couple days ago, only to then receive the free NFT and immediately dump it. That's the problematic part for me. Yeah. Everyone else, like the new folks, the quote unquote non-influencers that have been helping out for months and months to get that NFT and then have it like spike real quick and to cash out and make bank and now have like crypto means, I have no problem with something like that, right? So it's really nuanced. It's hard to talk about, and Twitter is not the best place for that sort of nuance.
No, those are all fair points, man. All those people that you're referring to would sort of fall under that category that I was talking about, as far as like, you hang around long enough and you're involved long enough, you end up getting some lucky airdrop, and good for those people, man. I have nothing. Brinkman's like, always like low key in on some shit, man. Like not throwing shade at Brinkman. I love Brinkman, but I'm like, dude, Brinkman knows what's up, man. He's got his ear to the ground and like somehow always manages to find his way into one of these like phenomenal drops, one time after another. He doesn't like talk too much about it, but yeah, man, I gotta hang out with Brinkman a little bit more often.
Seriously.
Yeah. But I mean, again, I'm talking a lot of shit, but I've lucked out on some airdrops. And I feel like, not throwing shade at Brinkman, like I was saying, you roll your sleeves up and you get involved in enough things and you're in on enough things early on. And every now and again you land one of these things, and Brinkman's a hustler, man. Like, for everything that I'm sure he wins out on, I'm sure he's involved in like a whole lot of things that he doesn't win out on as well. Even though, he does well for himself as an artist and everything, but, dude is out here like putting in the hours and the work and everything. No doubt about that.
100%, man. You want to talk a little bit about the Bob Ross whip we have planned for this week?
Yeah, should be fun. Still got some candy to kick out last week. Last week's was fun, man. I really like the holiday thing. We've always sort of leaned into that, and it's sort of like a fun season in the metaverse. I don't know, man. At this point, we're like a few holiday seasons deep. I have like great memories of like, birthday parties and crypto voxels and, Thanksgiving parties and Token Smart and all of this stuff is like super fun. So yeah, dude, this week should be another fucking weird one. I mean, you were there, man. How would you describe where we're going?
I'm so excited for this week. Like a couple weeks back, I think we took just you and me jumped into this Bob Ross land. And like my first impression was it reminded me of like old school Miss, like on my Gateway 2000 Windows 95 old ass computer. It looked absolutely gorgeous, lush, like you're hopping into this like hidden valley, waterfalls and all the gorgeous Bob Ross-esque trees painted in on the hills and everything like that. And it's deep. Like you can walk around for a minute there. So I'm pretty excited together with you to give folks a little bit of a tour. We're in the process right now of like setting the course of the tour. There's some like hidden goodies, thinking about how to incorporate that, seeing if there's any sort of like side quests that we can kind of take folks on a field trip to, have them play, and then proceed to like the next destination and stuff like that. But really excited to go in there because it's so performant too, for how detailed and like visually lush and rich it is. And just on a regular laptop, I was having no issues. So I'm excited to bring the whole rest of the Whip fam in there to see what's going on.
Yeah, it's a big spot with like a lot of different cool features, which is kind of fun, man. It's a departure from like the parcel model, where like, unless you have like a gigantic parcel in, say CryptoVoxels or Decentraland or a lot of other places, you can take a tour, but there's only so much space and so much to see. This place is big and impressive and cool and everything. He's Jay Got Game spot that's his handle on Twitter. And we've had him on the Whip in the past talking about his Bob Ross drop. And so no, it's cool. It should be wacky and fun. And shout out to Fabiano and his wife, whose name I don't want to butcher. I gotta pull it up. Patricia. They're going to start making stuff for us to give out at like all these whips now moving forward, or at least going to start with this one and see what happens. So everyone who shows up to the Whip this week will get some sort of awesome treat from Fabiano and Patricia. He better slide into my DMs if I'm butchering his wife's name, or she can. I've been a Fabiano fan for forever. I was not familiar with his wife up until I found out that they were working together to make the candy for trick or treating, and so that's fun, man. It's cool. It reminds me of Josh and Molly from Fly Frogs. They're the husband and wife artist and developer team, and it's kind of cool, man, when you got like a family vibe and involvement going on. So we're gonna find a way to give out whatever Fabiano and his wife whip up for us this week. So that'll be dope. And what was the other thing? Oh, we're gonna try teams. I think we're gonna try something with teams this week, because that's like sort of a wrinkle in Monoverse that CryptoVoxels doesn't have. At least very seamlessly, or Decentraland or anything. Like we can very easily chop people up into teams by giving people .vrms. So whatever this competition is, we're going to divide people up into teams, and it'll be like, one side versus another. I don't know, carrots versus eggplants or something like that. I think he actually has some ideas in mind for the VRMs, but anyway, that's sort of like a cool wrinkle that I want to start exploring more of, because I think that could be a lot of fun, especially if we, I don't know, start like some stupid shit talking, or like some camaraderie, or, team challenges or something. So I feel like there's something there that I want to start tinkering around with, this week that should be dope.
I love that. And then for the teams, like, is there gonna be like 2 VRM options that we can click into and like transform to?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not exactly sure what the best way is to execute it. I think it'll sort of depend on what the format of the scavenger hunt is. I don't know, man. There's a lot of different ways we could do it, like different weeks, to sort of tinker around with like a format and see what would be fun. We could do like a schoolyard pick type of thing, and then like when you go over to the one side, you get your uniform type of thing, or there's a lot of dumb shit. Except everyone would pick Dragonate. We have to make it fair.
Insert sounds of dragon being pulled apart in all directions.
Random. Dragonate OG. Scavenger hunt, metaverse master.
I hope Dragonade heard when I said I love him in our audio difficulties right before we had to start re-recording. I was just like waiting for you to come back. I was like, Dragonade, I love you. We love you, Dragonade.
I love you guys too.
Yeah, man. You want to wrap things up here?
Yeah, it should be a good whip this week. I'm trying to think, man. I don't know. Is there anything else I feel like I need to? Maybe if I like get it all out now, I'll lay off trolling people on Twitter.
I don't think that'll ever be the case, dude.
A couple days. No, dude. I'm messing with Known Origin as well. They're like another one that's irked me just in terms of habits.
Dude, save that for next week. Maybe we should have Mighty Moose on, because he's someone that I've seen have extremely, extremely strong opinions about that. And I feel like a healthy debate on that situation is really important, because I definitely come from like the opposite side, where like I can respect what KO has done. But anyway, that's a beehive. We should probably wait and hold off on kicking until next week. What do you think?
No, now, dude. Now I want to hear like your take on it. I respect your opinion, man. So here's my take, man. I wouldn't care nearly as much if I feel like they didn't almost mislead the community in the sense that they were building in a decentralized way, which turned out to be like extremely contrary to how things played out once they started like banning countries and like, getting acquired by eBay. I feel like that it completely flies in the face of like sort of what they were understood to be standing for. And I feel like that's why their OpenSea gets a lot of hatred as well, because I feel like they fall into the same category of like, a project that was sort of like playing off like the everyone who loves decentralization, but then when push comes to shove, they went like the total opposite direction. So that's where my annoyance is, not necessarily for them like making a bunch of money off of their project. But dude, would love to hear your take, man, and I'm open to having my mind changed, or at least I think so.
Yeah, like I said, I'm definitely holding off. This is way too rich of a conversation to peel off.
You're gonna leave me. You're not gonna give me like a TLDR, man. Can't leave me.
No, I refuse to, sir. I refuse to. Definitely want to say this. This is like a whole episode, man. If this goes into nitty gritty, there's the user perspective, there's the builder perspective, there's like impact to the space perspective, like playing out a counterfactual, like if they didn't go through with that acquisition, what it could have meant if they didn't have the runway to keep going. They needed to like shut up shop, sort of like what Additional went through. Like there's a lot of implications, a lot of threads to pull on. So we'll leave it there. And we can pick it up or not next week, leave people hanging, or satiate people's desire to dig down into the nitty gritty.
No, I'd be genuinely interested in hearing your take on like all those things, and I agree. It's I'm probably painting much broader strokes than is. There's probably like a lot of different angles to look at it, but yeah, still annoyed.
Giving me blue balls right now, dude. Anyway.
No, we could. Stella Bell's another one who it would be, who's not shy about her take. I don't know, man. I feel like if you could just get me, Mighty Moose, and Stella Bell on here, it'll just be like a rant session that'll never end. We're like all pretty much in line, I'm guessing, based on what I've seen. So, but I would like to hear your take, man. I honestly, and we can save it for another episode, but I feel like probably part of the reason why I feel as strongly as I do is I've never really heard a well-spoken defense of the maneuvers that they've made, or at least even if I've had it explained to me, I still kind of feel like, nah, it's bullshit. But I respect you, man, and your take, even if we agree to disagree. So all right, you can leave me with a cliffhanger. I'll suck it up.
Cliffhanger it is. All right, brother.
Cool, man.
We'll pick it up next week then.
Dope. Later.
Peace.